The seatbelt sign flickered on, casting a warm amber glow across the cabin. The engines purred steadily, a sound that lulled most passengers into quiet comfort. Some scrolled through their phones, others cracked open books or adjusted pillows for the long flight ahead. In seat 14A by the window, a woman in her late 30s sat quietly. Her dark hair was pulled back in a loose knot, a pair of plain aviator sunglasses perched on top of her head. She wore casual jeans, a faded navy hoodie, and carried nothing more than a small leather satchel tucked beneath the seat in front of her. She looked like any other traveler, ordinary, invisible. And that was how she preferred it. Then the intercom crackled. "Ladies and gentlemen, we may encounter some turbulence ahead. Please keep your seatbelts fastened." It was a routine announcement. But to seasoned ears, there was something in the captain's voice, tight, measured, just a shade too careful. The woman, Isabella Reyes, lifted her eyes from the paperback she wasn't really reading and glanced out the window. The skies looked calm. Still, her instincts, the instincts of a combat veteran, whispered otherwise. 15 minutes later, her unease proved right. The seatbelt sign blinked again. A pause followed. Then, faint at first, came the distant roar of engines that did not belong to a civilian jet. Passengers craned their necks toward the windows. Two dark silhouettes sliced through the clouds, F-22 Raptors, closing in fast. A child pressed her face against the glass. "Mom!" "Fighter jets!" Murmurs spread. A man too rose up, muttered under his breath. "What the hell's going on?" The Raptors leveled with the airliner, wingtip to wingtip, their canopies catching the sunlight like blades. The cabin fell into uneasy silence. The captain's voice returned, quieter this time. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have some unexpected company. Everything is under control. Please remain calm." Isabella didn't flinch. She just kept watching. Her face gave nothing away. Then she heard it. Words carried faintly through the intercom, too low for most to catch, but clear to her trained ear. "Tower, confirm passenger manifest. Is Spectre 1 on board?" Her jaw clenched. She hadn't heard that name in years. Not since she'd walked away from the Air Force. Not since the mission that had changed everything. The captain hesitated, then replied. "Affirmative. She's here." In an instant, the Raptors shifted formation. Both pilots raised gloved hands in a slow, deliberate salute, not to the plane, but to the woman in seat 14A. Gasps spread through the cabin. Passengers twisted in their seats, staring. Whispers rushed like wildfire. CIA. Royalty. A war hero. Isabella's expression didn't change. Only the faintest smile touched her lips. The man seated beside her leaned closer, voice low. "Who are you?" She didn't look at him. Not yet. Hours earlier, at the airport, Isabella had slipped through security with practiced ease. No checked bags. No laptop. Nothing that drew attention. Her boarding pass read, "I, Reyes." To the world, she was nobody. That was the point. She wasn't flying for herself. She was flying for a promise. A promise made years ago on a battlefield most people would never know existed. Back in the sky, the escort continued. The Raptors held their position, silent guardians, guiding the airliner through restricted airspace. For 30 long minutes, they remained, until finally, with one last dip of their wings, they broke formation and vanished into the horizon. Only then did Isabella allow herself to exhale. From her satchel, she pulled a worn photograph, 4 pilots on a scorched runway, flight suit streaked with dust and sweat. She was among them, helmet tucked under her arm, her call sign stenciled across her chest, Spectre 1. She remembered that day. The mission had gone to hell, and against all odds, she had flown into enemy fire to pull her wingmen out. Her aircraft had been torn apart, limping on fumes, but she had brought them home. That act had become legend in certain circles. Outside those circles, it never happened. By the time Flight 227 touched down, word had spread. Airport personnel lined the tarmac in quiet respect. Some stood at attention. Some placed hands over their hearts. At the jet bridge, 2 young officers waited. One snapped a salute. "Ma'am, it's an honor. My father flew with you. You saved his life." She returned the salute with crisp precision, then walked on. She hadn't come for recognition. She'd come for the promise. That evening, in a small town far from headlines and politics, Isabella stood at the edge of a candlelit memorial. A field glowed with soft light as the sun bled out across the horizon. Nobody there called her Isabella Reyes. They called her Spectre One. And for the first time in years, she let the weight of that name settle on her shoulders, not as a burden, but as quiet pride. In the distance, faint jet engines rumbled across the night sky. She lifted her head, and for the first time in a long time, she smiled. Sometimes, the greatest heroes are the ones who walk among us unseen. Seat 14A will never be forgotten, because that's where a legend was quietly waiting for the call.